Well, mower racing starts in 2 months, and this is the state of our operation right now. So what we're going to do today, as you guys see in the title, we're going to do some Peerless 700 race preps for the transmissions. We got a couple ones that we had in our storage area. We brought them out to the bench. The ones we raced last year are still in the mowers. We didn't take them out yet. But, you know, they leaked a lot of their gear oil out on the floor. And we just want to get some new ones, make sure we don't have any chipped teeth on the gears or anything like that. So we're going to go ahead and crack these open and show you what we do to get them pretty much ready to race. These types of transmissions are usually found in your small rear engine or mid-engine mowers, like a Craftsman or a Murray or something like that. Similar to a snapper, but snappers actually used a vari drive setup. They're also sometimes found in snowblowers or big walk-behind mowers, have them as well. So they are lawnmower transmission, which for a lot of divisions, USLMRA and ARMA, you do need to use a lawnmower transmission with a clutch bolt belt. So basically, that being said, these are a lot better option than transaxles. You run these with a cart rear axle. I'm not sure if these are 3 speeds or 5 speeds or what they are. They're probably 5 speed. That seems to be the most common. But what we're going to do is go ahead and get into them. I just got these things at a junkyard. Don't really know much about them. Don't know if there's any cracks. There could be bad gears. They could have got water in them. So what we're going to do now is crack them open and see what we're dealing with inside. This is inside of a Peerless 700. Joey got his apart over there. I got mine here. They're both 5 speeds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of gears. This is the reverse over here. Reverse is on a chain. That's something we're going to get rid of. We're spinning these things way too fast. We don't want a chain swinging around, breaking in there. Also, they're packed with like an automotive style grease. We're going to get rid of that too. Put in some gear oil. We got to do a seal with that. You'll see. We'll get into all that later. This bevel gear's the input. You'll see the input on the bottom there. This is the bottom half of the case. When I took it apart just a second ago on video, for some reason the gears came up with the top half, but this is the bottom half. This is your shift fork here. We'll get into all this a little bit later. Also, a good tip is to go ahead and put this thing on some bolts. These are 5/16 thread coarse. These are actually old flathead Briggs head bolts. So, you know, that way you got something to work off of, because there's a shaft that protrudes out the bottom quite a bit. So you'd be fighting with that. Next step is we're going to be taking out everything, all the gears, shift keys, checking the gears for cracks. These are, I believe, just like cast iron gears, so they're pretty strong, but you know, they also has the brittleness of cast iron. Also, these are just cast aluminum cases, so we got to inspect those for cracks. So what we'll be doing is taking everything apart, cleaning everything up, getting all this grease out of here, and looking for damage. Alright, so this is all the grease inside, loaded with grease. And the gears have quite a bit of grease on them too. Upper case isn't bad. So yeah, I'm going to be scooping all this grease out. I'm going to be trying to do a balance of, you know, getting good video of it, but also not covering the camera in grease. So you know, hopefully we can work that out pretty good. We got most of the grease scooped out here. Next step, we're gonna have to put in our parts cleaner. What do we get, Joey? We got 93 octane parts cleaner here?
Yeah.
Okay, 93 octane parts cleaner works pretty good on this grease. Alrighty, we're about to take the gears apart here, the gears and shafts apart. The chain with the sprockets, that's gonna go away. And also, an important part is, you know, when you're using some kind of solvent degreaser, these bushings here, you don't want to put these in any kind of solvent or degreaser. Some are bronze. These might actually be steel. I'm going to have to look at it a little closer. But what you don't want is, if they're grease impregnated, to put it in some kind of solvent and then all the grease will come out of it. We got all the bushings off. This one is fighting us. I think we got it now. I had to spin it with the channel locks. So this one's probably going to be wrecked. But I just wanted to get it on video. I think this thing's going to really shoot off when it finally pops. I think it's going to really pop. So I think we're pretty good with that. We just got to check the gears, make sure nothing's cracked or anything, and we'll be good to go. Alright, now that we actually got the shaft out and dropped on the floor again, we'll inspect it, see if we can find out why that thing was seized up, and make sure if we put a new bushing on, it's going to spin easier. So this shaft looks like it's slightly marred up a little bit. This is the one that the bushing didn't want to come off on. So we're going to see if we can hopefully just get that going with sandpaper. It looks alright other than that. Next step is to get these gears. These gears are off the input shaft, the one I just showed you. We'll get these going. These, there's nothing special to them. There's one washer on the end, and then the rest of them are just splined. So there's not too much going on with these. You can just throw them in and clean them. There's a little bit more involved on the other shaft. We'll show you when we get to that. While Joey's working over there taking all the grease off the gears, what I'm going to do is go ahead and take this input shaft out. What we got is a 9/16 snap ring on the inside and a 5/8 on the outside. So I'll just take this, I'll take this 9/16 snap ring off, pull it out. What you want to do is, when you're taking all these apart, including these shafts, you know, keep an eye on what washers you have. Generally, they're pretty simple. These are just have one washer on each side. But same with this one. Keep an eye on what you got for washers as far as having it shimmed up and down. So we'll go ahead and take that shaft out, check it, check the gear, and I'll show you what else we got. A few other things we got to do inside, which are a little more specific to the racing end of it. Okay, this is the shaft we got out. Again, keep in mind there's washers that you got to be somewhat mindful of. There's a washer underneath the bevel gear and then a washer on the bottom. They appear to be the same. Also, when they come factory, they have just this this O-ring here, which helps seal a little bit for grease. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be switching over to gear oil. So there's actually a special seal you need. And the other thing we got to do, I'm going to inspect. There's actual needle roller bearings in the input shaft. That's the only thing on these that have bearings. The rest is all just grease impregnated bushings. So we're going to give that a quick inspection. Hopefully those are okay. Otherwise we're going to have to pound them out, put in some new ones. Alright, so we're finally at the point where we're going to start doing these gears. The other ones are all pretty clean. We're not going crazy. It's only grease and we're putting gear oil. So, you know, it's not the end of the world if they mix a little. Here's your shift keys here. Very important, this collar here goes on the same way it comes off, where the thick end is pointed to the gears. Otherwise, it won't want to sand gear and it turns into this whole big thing. So this should just pull right off the end. But there's some junk in the way. You want to inspect your shift keys. Make sure the ends of them are pretty sharp, not all chipped up. These look fine. A lot of times you'll break them. Also, there's some Peerless 700s that have 4 shift keys. Those are obviously preferred. These only have 2, so not as strong for sure. Now on this shaft, the gears are different. They're not the same on both sides. This is your first gear. So what you actually have on the back side is a washer, which has a bevel on one side. I don't know how well that's picking up on camera. We'll do a still shot if it's not showing too good.
Yeah.
But there's one side that has a bevel. And also the gears, there's one side where it's, you know, there's a little bit of a recess in there for this washer. So you definitely have to take into account how they come off to put them back together the same way. Otherwise, the shift keys aren't going to want to work. They're not going to want to set in the gears, and it's just not going to be a good situation. So we're going to take all these apart, clean these up. Again, take notes of when you take it apart. Take pictures of when you take it apart, because this is one of the more critical parts. If you get it all together and this wasn't right, you're pretty much starting all over again. Back on the input shaft, check the needle roller bearings. They seem okay. I just kind of stuck my finger in there, spun it around. It didn't seem too gritty or anything like that. So what else we have to do here, which is the big step, is install this oil seal. We're going from grease to gear oil. So we're going to need to seal a lot better, especially when it gets hot. Otherwise, it's just going to be leaking all over the place. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just tap this in. I usually just find like a socket that fits pretty well. It's just rubber. You don't need to hit it in too hard. So I'm going to go ahead and tap that in. And after I tap it in, what I'm going to do is just pack the rest of that snout with grease. Just any automotive grease. Just pack it in there where those roller bearings are. Input shaft is back in, greased up, new oil seal. Also, I put new snap rings. No point in even trying to save the old ones. I just rip them right out. You can buy a whole bunch of them from Master Car, pretty cheap. I think I bought like 100 of them at a time. We're doing the gears. I think we're almost done with the gears, right, Joey? Pretty close?
Yeah, all done.
Pretty close, so we're gonna have to assemble those. Again, I even still to this day I take pictures of them when I'm doing them. Also, just so you'll know, there's at least 2 different styles of these washers that they use between the gears. There's this this style which has like a sharp bevel on the inside, and then there's one where they're kind of wavy. It looks like they've been stamped to have the bevel. I don't know if one's preferred or not. That's just, I use whatever comes with. We had to get another shaft here. I tried filing it up, but it really wasn't worth it. I got a whole bunch of them back. So ended up getting a new shaft, just pulled out another bushing from in back too. So this is pretty much what you're dealing with when you're ready for reassembly. I put all the gears back on the shafts as they came off. Even doing this as many times as I have, we still do it fairly infrequently, so I had to take pictures for references to make sure it goes back together the same way. So basically, yeah, the bottom case is ready to go with the shaft and everything. So next step is I'm going to be setting these shafts into the transmission. Sometimes it's a little bit of a pain to get them to get the gears meshed up, but we'll go ahead and do that now. Once you got everything together, you're going to want to go ahead and check your end play, make sure it's not too excessive or too tight. I put the same washers it came with, so I know it's not going to be too tight. There's a little bit of end play in the my output shaft, but it's not too bad. Another thing you're going to want to keep in mind and pay attention to is these bushings. There's a little tab on them that sits in a specific area here, and that's so they don't rotate on you. Otherwise, you'll be spinning the bushings, and that's just going to burn stuff up. So we're pretty much ready to go here. What I'm going to do is go ahead and I already cleaned these surfaces real good, both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and Permatex them. But first I'm going to add the oil. And when you add the gear oil, what you want to do is get it to where it basically just covers. Let me try to get you guys. Sorry about that terrible noise. It's maybe hard to see with the lighting I have. But what you want it to do is cover the top of the input shaft. Is basically where you want your gear oil level to be. You can see it when you're doing it, but it's a little bit down there in the dark right now. got it all permatexed up, cleaned the surfaces up, try not to touch them too much with my greasy fingers. I went with a high temp, not sure if that's really necessary, but might as well. So kind of the key to me to permatex is, well, the key to anything is reading the directions. But if you read the directions on the permatex, it actually tells you tighten it by hand until it starts to ooze out a little bit. I'm going to call that an ooze, and I'm going to do that. And all 6 bolts. Again, I just got an extension here, not going crazy. And what you're going to want to do then is let it sit for an hour, then give it its final torque. If you give it its final torque now, the permatex is way too soft, way too much of a liquid, and you're just going to squeeze it all out, and you're basically not going to have any seal. So yeah, just, you know, read the directions on it. That's what I do. On the high temp, at least, it says let it sit for an hour before you retorque it. Not sure if the other ones are different though. I'll be coming back down in about an hour to tighten that thing up. Just give it a good snug. Let that permatex really compress. Just a little more information on these types of transmissions. There are other options, especially for aftermarket applications, or only for aftermarket applications. EC Distributing, I believe, still makes billet cases. I think they make steel gears. A lot more durable stuff. These are the cheap option. They pretty much get me through. I don't have crazy high horsepower applications, but they pretty much work for me unless you shift them on the fly, or you're really dumping the clutch on like asphalt or something. They'll let you know about it, and they're going to grenade on you in that case. But as long as you're treating them with some respect and not going too hard on them, they're pretty much going to last for you. But that's pretty much going to do it for another episode of the Jantic Journal. Joey, you going to get in this outro or what?
Yeah, we'll catch you next time.
So go ahead and subscribe if you're into it. We got mower stuff, car stuff, mini bike stuff coming out. We're getting into the summer. That's when we're going to be doing most of our racing things outside, that type of stuff. So anyways, we'll catch you guys next time. Jantic Journal.